welcome back to the channel. Just wait on the adverts finishing. How are you all this evening? It says we're starting. I just need to press go live on this bit. Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, and good evening. Welcome back to the first live. Yo, Kaiser, how are you this evening? I don't know what I'm putting anyone for. Can hear you through the speakers. I can't hear you anyone else. Hail, San Francisco in house. Kaiser's in house. 1976. Doc says he'll be at work. Patrick McLaughlin says that he'll give, or we'll talk about that in a minute. Afternoon from sunny Fort Myers Beach in the good old US of A. So good evening to everyone else. Evening to you, Kaiser. Hope all is well. It's raining here. We'll get the weather out of the way first of all. We've had a 10 degrees turnaround in the weather. We went from 26 degrees down to 16. And it's wet and cloudy. So I like Scotland today. Paul Emery is just in the house. Also, there's currently 20 viewers. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up. I need to click on the other bit to get the thumbs up bit now. Let me click here. And then there's a couple of stories I want to talk about before we get into marking everyone's scorecards. Even with 8 games to go, I thought we would do... Well, this was planned anyway for last week. This time last week, wasn't it? And it never happened for one reason or another, but we'll not go into that. Anyway, there are now 38 people on. There's 20 thumbs up. Yay, that's even better. Patrick Toner's in the house. Said Lorna's in the house and Eddie's in the house. It's raining here too, Kaiser. There's a shock in it. Jim Dolan's in the house. Jim Dolan, even Baz, hope you're well. Yes, I am. Hazel's in the house. Patrick Toner, San Francisco, Gemma, even to you from Maka and Wee Gem. And Evan Sean says, evening, Baz, mate. Hope all is well. Choking for the footy. So, yes. International football at this time of year is just, I mean, is there not another international football break before the end of the season? When do we play? Is it not June? I have no idea. Scotland play again. They've got another 2 games. Paul Baird's in the house. Who really cares? And Parkhead Boy is in pissing down as per. Yeah, the weather's been crap this spring, hasn't it? Anyway, right, let's get to some Celtic news first of all. There's been an interesting one. Do you remember Tommy Johnston? Played for Celtic. You remember Tommy Johnson? He was a cracking little goal scorer for Celtic, if you remember him. Long time ago. He played around the same time as Henrik Larsson and Harold Bratback did Tommy Johnson. Tommy Johnson has been mooted for the role that the one and only Lawwell has just left. He's got an interesting career, has Tommy Johnson. Tommy Johnson, who obviously played for the club, he's been head of recruitment at Blackpool. He's also been scouted for Cardiff in the English Premiership, while earning his coaching roles. He would have been South End's recruitment in chief when Henrik Larsson was offered the job back in 2019, but the two of them walked away when Johan Malby wasn't included into the equation, which is an interesting one. So Tommy Johnson's been linked. I don't think he will get the job, but he has been linked with coming back to Celtic in the capacity of head scout, heading up the department that Peter Lawwell. I can't see that happening, not when Lawwell's in town. Lawwell doesn't seem to like anybody that was at Celtic in that era. And certainly not in an employable way. The North Curve Celtic have came out last May. Paradise belonged to the girls as a record crowd got behind them for a dramatic end to the season. Once again, we have the opportunity. You have the opportunity. The fans have the opportunity to join the Celtic end and create the same wall of noise and colour that inspired the girls. Well, they didn't manage to do what the objective was to win the league. They didn't do it. But anyway, I've got 2 things I want to say about that, right? I mean, I know that the objective is that the Green Brigade now want to move to that end and create a Celtic end, a bit like Borussia Dortmund and other teams in Europe, and they want to create this Celtic end thing, but it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. because you've got the Kerrydale suite at that end, you've got all the corporate. They're never going to move the corporate. Where are they going to move the corporate to? They're not going to give corporate seats in the North Curve corner. They're definitely not going to give them. And it's just another example of Celtic exploiting the fans. It's as simple as that. It's just another. I mean, we all know that yes, the Green Brigade will get that section filled out behind the goals. They'll put on a fantastic display, and they'll say, "Look, this is what a Celtic end could look like." It's never going to happen, lads. And let's face it, it took long enough to get the standing section, and Peter Lawwell was lauded for approving and installing that, and he made sure that he was the top man to take all the praise. When realistically, there was talks went on between the Green Brigade and Celtic for a couple of years to get that standing section. To go as far as saying to try and get a standing section behind the goals at the Celtic end, as good as it would be, I think it would be a good thing, but it's never going to happen because there's people that have had seats in that end of the ground since it was built. Since the ground was turned into an all-seater stadium, there's people that have had their seats in that end of the stadium since day dot, since the 1990s, since Fergus McCann brought it in, and they will not want to move. They will not want to move. They'll get the opportunity to stay, but they'll not want to be in. You can hear crisp packets and peanuts rolling about when you're in that end as it is just now. There's absolutely no chance that they're then going to move to go behind in the corner flag at almost what they call the Rangers end at Celtic. Anyway, we'll move on for that. It'll be an interesting day. Tickets details will be confirmed as soon as possible. But Celtic and the Green Brigade and the boys will have that opportunity to show off the Celtic end. And let's face it, it's all about the club selling money, selling tickets for the women's football. It's nothing else. Don't get your hopes up that we're going next season going to have a Celtic end. Not a chance. Not a chance. I can't see it happening anytime soon, but big up the club for doing it for the girls. Anyway, we move on for that. And spoke about Mark Lawwell, and I don't know if I want to talk about him this video. Anyway, we'll get into what the video was all about. And it was talking about the Celtic players. Talking about the Celtic players. And we're going to I've written down, I've got my notepad done, I've done it. I have the players, every player written down, and I have rated them. I've rated our woeful team. It won't be woeful if we win a double, of course. It'll be the best thing since sliced bread. Yeah, it's just the same. It won't be the same as sliced bread shit anyway. It's food stuff. Anyway, let's get on to it. We'll get through some of the comments and get through some of the comments, and then we'll jump into rating the players. Rating the players. Lanky's in the house. Evening trips. Lanky. Tommy wasn't a bad player. Yes, he wasn't. Tommy Johnson was a cracking player and scored some cracking goals. And just to run about smoking a cigar, remember, Tommy Johnson after he scored, which was brilliant. I loved the last time at the Green Wall, says Kaiser. Lanka says, be better when the hoops are back, Lorna. It's too quiet. Yeah, it's too quiet without them. If the club wanted the Green Wall, it would happen, says Michael Ross. If they wanted the Green Wall, it would happen. I don't think. You see, it's fine being able to play the way that where the Green Brigade is. You've got to remember that the little police tower at Celtic Park. We'll talk about this briefly. The little tower where the police sergeants and everyone sit, and the captains and the police all sit and monitor everything that's going on at the ground. They're positioned directly across from there, so they can sit and look through the cameras that are zoomed in on that area, and then they can look with their own eyes to see what's actually going on. To move that behind the goals, logistically, would be a nightmare for the coppers. They can watch people coming down the staircase, one staircase to get out of 111, to go into 111. Sorry, and then when they're coming out, they can get them cornered in. I think to increase that would be there would be objections from Glasgow City Council and the Police Scotland. That's just my own personal opinion. After being in and around that section for many, many years, I'm just thinking the way that they will think about things, and that you've got to remember our head of security is an ex-copper. So there's absolutely no chance of it happening. I just don't see it happening. Anyway, let's get to Maida. Also gets pass marks. Right, we're going to get straight into it. San Celtic says, why the fuck do they bring ticket exchange programs to prevent all the empty seats at Celtic Park? You've got to remember, San Fran Celtic, some of the seats at Celtic Park are people that go to the game and just go and sit in the pub. They end up sitting in the pub, and that's part of the problem. Is anyway, have you rated McCarthy? Yes, I have rated McCarthy as a zero, as well as another Celtic player. Right, let's get into it. Joe Hart. Joe Hart, tell me in the comments section, put it in the comments what you've rated Joe Hart as. Now, Joe Hart has had an interesting season at Celtic. He was sent off this season as a player. He was sent off. He's had some wonderful saves, and he's had some Joe Hart moments. Moments specifically at corners where you're thinking, why does he do that? Why does he do that? And then some of the passing out from Joe Hart. I've actually marked Joe Hart as 8 out of 10. And I'm going to tell you why. Because some of the saves that he's made this season has been top class. Let's not lie about it. And top class. And what he brings, and what I want you to think about when you're marking players so far is what they bring to the team. And it's not just what they do on the pitch. Although we can mark them for what they do on the pitch, I want you to think about what they bring to the team also. And I think Joe Hart, I've marked him 8 out of 10, purely for the fact that he brings that bit of experience to the club and to the players and to the younger players. And I think that's been important at times this season. But other times, he's not been at his best. I've given him 8 out of 10, but it's a reluctant 8 out of 10. I think it's because of what he brings to the team, and as a total package, I've given him 8 out of 10. Anyway, let's move on to Alistair Johnson. Alistair Johnson's been out with James. That's harsh. It's Big Joe's got an 8 out of 10. Also, 7.75 says Paul Baird for Hart. 8 out of 10 says Lanky. John Prince says 7. Paul Emily says 7 for Joe Hart. James Smith, Hart 4. Jesus. Hart 4. Stephen McDonald says 10. 10 out of 10. That's a bit much. He's not a 10 out of 10. No way. He's not been that good. He's not been that good. If he'd been that good, we would still be top of the league by a good few points. That's all I'm saying. I'd give a Hart 6 before Christmas and then 8.5 after the break. That's why I was going to give him a 7.5, and I thought that's a bit harsh on Joe when you look at some of the saves that he has made, and it's been important saves. Do you know what I mean? But so I've given him 8 out of 10. Alistair Johnston. Right, let's get to Alistair Johnson. Patrick's in with Alistair Johnson. He's given him a 6. Who really cares? He's given him a 7. I'm keeping my pen here. I've already written my marks down. I've given Alistair. Now remember, Alistair Johnson hasn't been as fit. He has been injured this season, so I've given him a 7 out of 10 because of what he brings to the team, and he's the best that we've got in that position. He's the best that we've got in that position. He's only got really Ralston to go for him, but I would give him 7.5 out of 10. Alistair Johnson. I think he could improve. He could have got up there to the 8 and 9. I think last year he was a 9 out of 10 all season. But this season, I would say that he was sitting around about a 7.5. Now, then we move on to Greg Taylor. Greg Taylor, the Scottish player that gets an unbelievable amount of stick. Greg Taylor is a player that a lot of Celtic fans wanted out of Celtic before Ange Postecoglou came in. And then it shows when Greg Taylor isn't playing. So bearing that in mind, when Greg Taylor isn't playing, what do you think that his overall score has been for the season? You got to remember, when you see Greg Taylor going into the sort of middle of the park and playing in that inverted role that he played under Ange Postecoglou, I've given him a 7 out of 10. 5 out of 10 says Greg Taylor. 8 out of 10 says Paul. Lanky's going for 8 out of 10. Patrick's going 6 out of 10. Kaiser's going 7 out of 10. I've went 7 out of 10. 7 also for Taylor. Taylor 6, 5. Greg gets 7. That's what I've went for, 7. Greg Taylor plays pass marks most games. He gets pass marks most games, but is he as good as what he has been? It's been a bad season for a lot of Celtic players. They've not been at their top form. And that's why I've only given Greg a 7. I think he's another player that was probably around about an 8.5 last season. So I've given him a 7 this season. I've given him a 7 this season. Paul Imries went for 8 out of 10, 6.5, says Gemma. James Gunn says 6. And a lot of 6 and 7s. I've given the rating so far as 4 out of 10. 4 out of 10 in San Francisco Celtic. Right, next up in defence is a player that I hoped was going to be absolutely fantastic for Celtic, just because we done the little Lager Gustav song for him at the beginning of the season from the Trainspotting film. I thought it would have been fantastic, Born Slippy. And but Gustav Lagerbielke, what is he worth this season? What's his rating? Gustav Lagerbielke. Gustav Lagerbielke for me has been a 6.5. 6.5. I think he's a player that came in at the start of the season at a hard time. He got pass marks for those games, but something seems to have happened behind closed doors. And, 6.5. And he got the 0.5 for his header in the Champions League. Should he have got more than 6.5? Because he was the first person to score from a header, I think, by Celtic this season. I think he was the first person to score a goal from a header in open play this season. So Lager's getting a 5, Lager's 6. Come on, Lanky. We're not even at Cameron Carter-Vickers yet. Oh, Matt O'Reilly or anybody, calm down. Stop stealing the thunder. Lager's got 4.3. Kaiser says that deserves a 9. Who really cares? 5 just for the Sevco game. I think when he was at the beginning of the season, he was one of the better performing players. He stooped into that defensive role, and he didn't do too much wrong, apart from getting sent off in the Champions League. He didn't do too much wrong at the beginning of the season, but he hasn't played that much. So on that, I would give him a 6.5. Right, next up is Scales. Liam Scales, who, remember, at the start of the season, I said that Liam Scales would be up there for most improved player this season. And Liam Scales, what do you give Liam Scales? I'm going to come straight out of that. I've given him 8.5. I've given Liam Scales 8.5 because of his consistency. He has been consistent. He's been the one consistent rock in defence all season. He's made that position his own. He does have the odd moment. He does have the odd moment where you're thinking, why did you do that? Why did you do that? But I've given him an 8.5 because I think consistently he's been there all season and he's done it all season. So tell me what you think. Scales 9.3, Oberski's Scales 9.5, Gemma's 8.5, Patrick McLaughlin 6.5. That's a bit harsh considering he's been our best defender all season. Matt says Scales is 7. To be fair, Anderson's got a game time 5.5. Scales is our best centre back, says Lanky. Scales is an 8. Lorna Gallagher says Scales 9. I'm going for Scales 8.5. I've went because I think there is parts of his game. I think when he gets a consistent run with Cameron and Carter Vickers, he'll be one of those players that you'll go, you know what, he actually is. He's decent if he gets that solid partnership. So there's a lot of people going for 8s, 8.5s, 8.9, 8.9. I'll give Skills an 8, and Kieran says I'll give Skills an 8.5. Right, next up is Big Rocky, Marek Rocky. I've given him a 6.5. He has been out injured, Big Rocky, and I've given him a 6.5 when he's came into the team. He hasn't done too bad, but he's never set the header on fire, as they say. So I've given Rocky a 6.5, purely for the fact that he's for the money that he cost. For the money that he cost, Rocky, I think that he should have been better. He should have been better. Now, is it the big Polish defender struggled to get a bit of fluency when he's came in? Big Ronnie 6 has been Big Rocky 6 has been generous, 5.5, 5 against the Plum 0. Not seen enough of him. We've got 4, 6. Yeah, I think we could all say the same. we've not seen the best of him. It was one player that was told that he wasn't going to be leaving Celtic. Gustav Lagerbielke was told he was leaving Celtic, but from what I've seen, I've just rated him 6.5. I think we need to see more of him next season, and hopefully he can get a run of games and he can maintain his fitness. So yeah, Rocky, when we see him, 6. A few people are saying 6. Next up is Kobayashi. Kobayashi is in the squad. He is in first team squad, but I've given Kobayashi. In fact, I'll let you give me your thoughts on Kobayashi first. What is your thoughts on Kobayashi? Kobayashi in Celtic. Has he not left Celtic? I can't even remember. Kobayashi for Celtic. Tell me what you think of Kobayashi. I'm being generous too, says Lanky. I tell you that's for Kobayashi. I'm not even. I'm going to tell you, Kobayashi 0. Catch 0, 0. Yep, that's what I've given him. I've given him a 0 as well. Look, Kobayashi 0. I have given him a 0. Yep, Kobayashi a 0. Be gone with them. Be gone with them, as they say. I have given Kobayashi a 0. Kobe 4, Kobe 5. Who? Hee haw. Look at it, get a 1. Kobayashi gets -1 from Lorna Gallagher. It's Kobayashi -20, says Stuart Ramsey. Right. Next up is our Man Mountain. Is he a Man Mountain? It's big Cameron Carter-Vickers. I've given Cameron Carter-Vickers 7.5 this season. I've given him 7.5 because of the injuries that he's had this season, the inability to keep fit, which has been no fault of his own, and I think it's all been down to the knee injury that he had last season. When he comes in, he's an important player for Celtic, but it's that inability. It's that inability for him to stay fit. So I've given Cameron Carter-Vickers 7.5 on that. I think he could have had a better season. We're not talking about individual performances and individual games, but overall for the season so far, I've given Cameron Carter-Vickers 7.5, purely for the fact that he's not been fit enough. He's never maintained a decent level of fitness all season, and I think that some of the injuries he was maybe rushed back too soon, and I think that's hit his form. So a lot of people are saying 7, 8.5, 8, 7, 7. 7 due to his injuries, yeah, and I think I was right giving him a 7.5, purely for the injuries that he's had this season. He's another player. £10 bet, remember, Baz. Player of the year, Cameron Carter-Vickers. I'm still saying it's skills, mate. Still saying it's skills. 9, he calms us when he's in. Yes, Stuart, he does, but he's not done it enough this season. You can say that when he's playing, he's good, but when he's not playing, he's not been able to have that consistency. So I'm giving him 7.5. When he's fit and he's fully fit, he's up there. He's an 8, 9, 9.5. But he's not had that this season. So anyway, next up in their defence is Tony Ralston. Tony Ralston, over the last 3 years, the most important thing that Tony Ralston has done was score a goal up at Ross County away on a dark, dismal night in the 97th minute or something, 96th minute, scored a header, and the ball comes in for a hit, and Tony Ralston's in there and scores a header, and it was one of the goals that helped us win the league. Other than that, what has Tony Ralston done this season? Tony Ralston, the Gibaz a thumbs up, says the truth. For Lorna, says the truth. Yeah, even you know what I'm trying to say. Tony Ralston, I've given Tony Ralston a 6 this season. I don't think he's had the impact when he's came on that he has had in previous seasons. I just don't think he's managed to get that level that he was at when he came on before. He's not had the best of seasons. I've given him a 6. For Tony, he tries, yeah, a 6 for Tony because he tries, yeah, but he tries, but he's not really had. He's not been a non-existent this season, Tony Ralston. Now there you go, Tony Ralston 5, Tony Ralston 7, Ralston 6.5, Ralston 4, says James. Yeah, Tony Ralston, he's not had the biggest impact. He seems to be brought on later in games to try and save the fitness of the current first team squad. And he's not really, when Tony Ralston and that has come on in the second half of games, it's usually when we're winning. and the shape of the team and everything changes and everything kind of slows down and it's not the same impact. So 6 was very generous, Braz. Yeah, I've given him a 6 because he does try, and he is a Celtic man through and through. But Ralston 4, Ralston 5, played at Ibrox, and that's it. Yeah, intensity has dropped a bit. Yeah, that's what I think. I think the players is the intensity they had the couple of seasons under Ange just isn't there. Is that his fault or is that training's fault? Well, that's a conversation for another day. Next up is a player that the manager likes. It's a player that the manager likes in defence, and it's a player that a lot of Celtic fans don't really like in defence. It's Stephen Welsh. I have given Stephen Welsh 7 out of 5. And I'm going to say 7 out of 5 because when he's fit, now you're going to say, but you've given them the exact same score as Cameron Carter-Vickers, because the two of them have probably been injured just about as much as each other this season. But when Welsh has been in the team, there is that little bit of assurance about him. He's not the best defender. He's not the best defender, but he's a defender that he does what it says on the tin. He does what it says on the tin, and for that, I'm giving Welsh 7.5. There's no frills about Stephen Welsh. He defends. He doesn't try to do anything, he doesn't try to run up to the other end of the box like what maybe Scales does. He plays the ball out for the back and he defends with the 4-leaf clover on his chest. So what do you think? Stephen Welsh, 6, -2 is brutal. 6 for Welsh, 4 out of 10. Welsh, he's Victor 4.5, 7 for Ian. It's Welsh 5, Welsh 7. Welsh is a 10, says. Let's see, there you go. There's a 10 for Welsh. Spacey says 6.5. Welsh is a 5 for James. It's an interesting one. Now, there's a player in midfield. We're on to the midfield players now. And there's a player in midfield that was brought in, and he was meant to be a fantastic midfield player. But for me, he's a bit skinny. He is a bit skinny to be an imposing Celtic midfield player. And that's Ohm. What do you rate Ohm in the Celtic midfield? I'm going to rate Ohm at a 5. I don't think he's got it for Celtic. I don't know what it is. There's something about him as a player that I'm not sure that he's going to have what it takes. Ohm. I don't think Ohm is a 6. Nicholas Dublin, you must be a fan of the big fella. Yeah, I'm giving Ohm a 5. I can't say too much about Ohm. He's not had. He's a player that just he looks too lightweight for me. He looks too lightweight. He's too lightweight in that midfield. I've given him 5 out of 10 because when he's had his chance, has he taken it? Has he dominated that midfield? Not really. I think he's been a player that he's come in and probably shouldn't have. I can't think of any other time in history that a player like Ohm would even be bought for Celtic. And I just don't see it. I don't see it. I don't think he's a player that's going to make it at Celtic. I hope I'm maybe wrong, but I can't see him displacing Callum McGregor. I can't see him displacing young Daniel Kelly. If Daniel Kelly gets in the team before him. So for me, Ohm, he gets a 5 out of 10, which is probably one of the, apart from James McCarthy and Kobayashi, is one of the worst scoring players that I've marked out for this season. So yeah, Ohm, not seen enough film. Ohm 5, Ohm question mark. Yeah. Yes, we'll move on for that. Next one is the enigma. And it's James McCarthy. James McCarthy scores a 0. Because when you do fuck all, you get scored fuck all. Ohm was a bargain. Yeah, if we've moved on for Ohm, we're on about James McCarthy. In one word, give us your James McCarthy comment in one word in the comment section. In one word, give us what you think of James McCarthy. James McCarthy. Now I could see you're all thinking. No one's typing because you're all thinking. It's like James McCarthy. What do we say about James McCarthy? Yeah, invisible. He gets a 10 because he's better off the park than on it. -100. Here's the comments. Oh, Jesus, minus 30, minus 30. McCarthy, 9. No comment. McCarthy, no comment. Right, we'll move on from McCarthy. We'll move on from McCarthy. Yes. I'd give McCarthy the book. Minus 10 million. James, who? Invisible. Yes, it is that. Right. We'll move on to a player that has stepped in for. Well, he hasn't really stepped in for our captain, but he stepped into the position that the captain has been playing, and it's Tomoki Iwata. Tomoki Iwata, I'm going to give Tomoki Iwata 7.5. I'm going to score Tomoki Iwata 7.5. He comes into that holding midfield player position. Is he as good as James? Is he as good as Callum McGregor? No, he's not. He's a good player, but for the money that we paid for him and the hype um, around Tomoki Iwata, I'm going to give him 7.5. Probably haven't seen enough of him. Minus 20 for Maka. Zilch. Give us your Tomoki Iwata. Iwata 7, Iwata 8.5, Iwata 4, Iwata 6.5. I've given him 7.5. He's done a job in that midfield. He needs a consistent run. He does need a consistent run in the team. And I think, can he make that position his own? I think if that's the type of player that we're going into the Champions League next season with in that position, I might be a little bit worried. I might be a little bit worried. I think we can do a lot better, but maybe we can improve him as a player. You never know. Big 7 Awata 7. I've given him 7.5. Right. Next up is a player that's caused a lot of conversation this week. It came out by the Portuguese publication Ebola, that Celtic were going to buy this player for the best part of 7 million. And it's Paulo Bernardo. What do you score Paulo Bernardo in? What do you score Paulo Bernardo? I've given Paulo Bernardo a 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10 because his contribution was okay at points this season. Has a 7 in a pot noodle? Jesus. Tony minus 7. To Paulo Bernardo. Bernardo gets an 8. I've given him a 7. I've given Paulo Bernardo a 7 out of 10. I think he's a player that could improve. Can he dominate that midfield like what midfield generals have in the past for Celtic? When you look at people like Paul Lambert, Neil Lennon, Scott Brown, to the modern day Callum McGregor, can he stop the game? Can he control the game? Can he dominate that midfield and be the start of everything going forward? So with what I've seen this season, I don't think that he is up there. So I've given him that reason. I've given him a 7 out of 10. A lot of people are saying 7, 7, 8.5, 7.5, 7, 7. Definitely an 8 player in the making. Yeah, he's got that in the making. But we're not talking about in the making. We're talking about what he's actually done this season and how he's performed. I think he's performed okay, but I think he could do better. And I think he's not up there. It's Bernardo 7 when he turns up. Bernardo, I just think he could do a lot better. He could do a lot better. Anyway, next up is the player that Celtic turned down an offer of to take away on loan, and then with an obligation to buy, for 18 million, and Celtic turned down that offer of 18 million because they want in the region of 25 million. Yes, it's Matt O'Reilly. Matt O'Reilly. I've scored Matt O'Reilly 8 out of 10 for this season so far. I think he's a player that probably, if his form had stayed the way it was before Christmas, he'd have been right up there, 9.5 out of 10. And 9.5 out of 10. But his form has dipped since Christmas. And I would say that Matt O'Reilly's an 8 out of 10 for me. For me, he is 8 out of 10. What do you score, Matt O'Reilly? 7.5, 7.5, 8.5. Matt O'Reilly's, Paul Baird says he's 7. Kelly costs nothing to play him. Yeah, I think we should be playing Kelly. 7. Matt O'Reilly, 9. Lorna's got her love on for Matt. 8 for Matt. 8. Yeah, I've given him an 8. 8.5, 7. Matt O'Reilly. His head is all over the place. 7 for me. But when that's the second half of the season. The first half of the season, you've got to remember, Matt O'Reilly is our second highest goal scorer behind Kyogo. So are you going to mark him down when he's second best goal scorer in the league this season. I mean, really, you should be marking Matt O'Reilly around about 8.5 out of 10, just for his goal scores, the goals that he scored the first half of the season. It's taken a bit of a dip in his form, so I've scored him 8 out of 10 for that. Domestic 10 and 7.5 in Europe. Yeah, a 7.5, I would agree, 8 out of 10 for Matt. However, after Madrid showed interest in him, his form has dipped, says Kaz. Right, next up this is going to be an interesting one. It's a midfield player that we had hoped is going to be the midfielder that saves our season. Are we sending out an SOS to Rio Hatate? What do you mark Rio Hatate's form being like this season? What do you rate Rio Hatate? Now remember, Rio Hatate was dropped for the very first game of the season in the place of David Turnbull. David Turnbull's form at the beginning of the season, David Turnbull was on fire. David Turnbull scored 2 goals the first 2 games of the season, whilst Rio Hatate was nowhere to really be seen. Rio Hatate, his form was terrible at the beginning of the season. His head was down. It looked as if at the beginning of the season, it looked as if he was waiting on someone to come in and make a transfer off him for him. I've marked Rio Hatate as a 5. Purely for this season, is injury, and I think his head wasn't in it at the beginning of the season. So 5 for Rio so far. I think he went away to the Asia Cup, and I don't know if he was in the right frame of mind even to go to the Asia Cup. When he came away from the Asia Cup, he apologised to the national team and the national fans, saying that his effort wasn't good enough. He wasn't good enough, and he came back with 2 injured calves. It's the type of player that when he's injured, he obviously doesn't like to admit he's injured, and it makes the injury worse. He should be holding his hands up and saying, look, I'm injured, I can't do that. But players don't want to do that. So for this season, I'm going to say Rio Hatate's had a poor season. He's had a poor season, and that shows with Celtic, and it's been a 5 that he gets from me. Now, next up is our head figure, the man that knows everything about Celtic and knows what it's like to win trebles. He knows what it's like to win and come through the ranks at Celtic. There's pictures of this player as a young ball boy with some fantastic legends of players in the past. His name's Callum McGregor. Callum McGregor, I've rated Callum McGregor as 8.5. 8.5 for our captain, and people are going to say, he's done nothing. He's done nothing. Well, look at the form that Celtic have been in when Callum McGregor doesn't play. Callum McGregor, for me, gets 8.5 all day long because Callum McGregor brings a lot more than just the captaincy to the team. He brings a lot of things that happen off the ball, a lot of things that you don't see on the television, a lot of things that you don't see on the television because it's not near the ball. You know, a lot of things that when you're at games and you can actually see him telling players to move into positions, you know, shouting them, speaking to Brendan Rodgers on the side of the pitch. Calmac, for me, all day long is an 8.5. And when people say he's not playing his best, he needs a break, Callum performs when he's got really good players. Callum gets to that 9, 10 out of 10 when he's got good players. Callum's been brought down to the standard of the player that Celtic have brought to the club. You know, he's been brought down that level, but he's still the best player that I have scored so far. Apart from Scales, he gets the exact same as Scales, and that is 8.5 out of 10 for me. Kaiser gets 7 for his play and 5 for his pointing. Cameron Carter Vickers is a bigger loss than Calmac, says Sam from Celtic. Same here, Baz. Good 8. Yep, a minus 7. An instant 8 for Calmac. Yep, Calmac 9. Hart. Yep, not been Calmac's best season. Let's be honest. But Michael, it's not been his best season. But it's like I've just said. Calmac excels as a player. You look at the years over the years that Calmac's been here as a player, and he's a player that excels when he's got good players round about him. He's a player that he ups his game when he's got good players round about him. He's had complete shite round about him this season some of the time, and he's having to big them up. Calmac's not used to having to big players up to get up to a standard. Calmac's usually the one that's having to up his standard to the level of Scott Brown, to the level of player around about him. So for me, he's still one of the best players at Celtic, and he gets 8.5. Now, the next one is another player that's been at Celtic equally long, if not longer. In fact, probably has been there longer because he's older. and he knows what it's like to win. And people say that he should have been left Celtic. He's been a good servant. Let him go. Why was he given a 3-year contract? Because you cannot buy the experience that James Forrest has. You cannot buy the level of experience. And James Forrest knows how to come off the wings and score goals. For me, James Forrest, even in his limited games, has had an 8 out of 10 season. James Forrest knows what it means to play for Celtic. James Forrest knows what it means to get over the line. Even the manager knows that James Forrest will get some game time between now and the end of the season, because he's the type of player that's got that grit and that ability and that drive to push Celtic forward. For me, James Forrest, even with his limited game, has been an 8 out of 10 for him, because I just think that James Forrest is even to this day, he's underrated. We like to give Forrest stick and say, oh, he's past it. He's not past it at all. If he's lost half a yard, play him for 60 minutes, play him for the last 30 minutes. He's a fantastic player to bring on off the bench. When you're sitting as an opposing team and you're completely knackered after 80 minutes of getting running, chasing Celtic, running about, and then you see James Forrest coming off the bench, you're like, what? Really? He's a break, man. This James Forrest coming on just to run in. So for me, James Forrest gets an 8 out of 10. A lot of people say 6.5, 6. Forrest is great. Reading Brendan knows 9, 7.5. Forrest 9, underrated player. Yep, Jamesy 8.5. Keep him sweet 10. Keep him sweet. Forrest not seen enough of him, says James Smith. Calmack, another player played through the years. Couple of seasons played back. I'll give him 7. Been my favourite player for years, James. Up the Celts. Yep, Forrest. Check his stats for the last season. It's not a good reason. Michael Ross, look at his stats for the last 3 seasons. Look at his stats per game that he's played, the games that he's played. Ange Postecoglou didn't like James Forrest because he liked the younger players that he brought in. When you look at the game time that he's had and the stats from his game time, not the amount of games that he's played, when you look at the stats from his game time when he's played, Jamesy Forrest is still up there. But he is anyway. Next up is a player that loves the Instagram picture. He loves Instagram, and it said the one and only Lewis Palma. I'm giving Lewis Palma an 8. I should have given him a 7, just for his efforts the first half of the season. He has been dropped. He's a player that, when he's on his game, he can be fantastic, but he keeps the ball too much. He's an old school ball greedy Bampot. It's got to swear there. Take a green pass off. Jamesy's passed it. Jamesy's passed it. Aye, there, garbage bags. Burial. It's Palma, 7.5. I would give Palma a 7. Purely for the goals that he scored. And you've got to remember, Palma is up there with goal scorers this season also. Forrest is my experience in my eyes. He's my favourite, says Gemma. Palma gets an 8. Consistent 7.5, 7.5. 6.5, 7, Blue Palma, 6.5, 7, 7.2, 7.5. You're rating them on this season. Palma's only played this season. Of course, we're rating them on this season. We're not rating them on seasons gone by. We're rating them this season. Palma gets a 7 for me. Now, next up was Palma 4 for what I've seen. Command, it was poor. Palma 6. A show off to Parkhead boys. Right. Next up is our top goal scorer for the last couple of seasons, Kyogo. Kyogo hasn't had the best of seasons, but I'm still going to give him 7.5. He's still our top goal scorer this season, is Kyogo, but he hasn't had the best of seasons, and I'm going to give him a 7.5, which might be a bit harsh on Kyogo. People are saying you've got to remember Kyogo was playing out of position the first half of the season. Well, the manager was bringing Kyogo into that sort of midfield role so that it was getting him away from defenders. Kyogo had an awful lot of problems with defenders just running at him, shoulder charging him when he was off the ball. And for me, Kyogo gets a 7.5. San Fran Celtics in spaces in 7, 7.5. Kyogo 7. Kyogo 8, says Tamak. Kyogo's a ninja. His wet Kyogo 6. Have you missed Kuhn? No, we've not got to Kuhn yet. Calm yourself. I'm going on numbers, squad numbers, and the way that they are on the Celtic team. So, yeah, there's still Still Ida, Kuhn, Yang, O, Dyson, and young Kelly to go. So there is 5 players to go yet. So don't worry, we're not at the end of the team just yet. 7 for Kyogo could go up. Yeah, Kyogo's not had the best of seasons, but he's 7.5 for me. I think he'll find his goal scoring boots between now and the end of the season. 7.5, not his fault. He's been played a different role. Yep. Kyogo 8. I blame Rodgers' stupid tactics. Kyogo 7. When you look at how many shots on target, right? When you look at Kyogo, you have to look at goal scoring opportunities, and the stats for Kyogo don't look good this season. When you look at the stats for Kyogo this season, he's missed a lot of sitters, he's missed a lot of open goals, he's missed shots that in years gone by, Kyogo would put them away. So for me, Kyogo is only sitting at 7.5 due to the stats that I looked at before the game, and I should have got them up. Anyway, next up is a man that came in, and a man that even to his game to goals ratio, his game to goal ratio is one of the best at Celtic at the moment, and it's Adam Ida. I'm not going to tell you what I've got. Adam Ida scored, as you see. There's Adam Ida, and he scored there. Tell me what you think about Brendan Rodgers as a 0. Tell me what you think about Adam Ida. Tell me what you think about Adam and what his contribution to Celtic has been so far, and what you would say his season has been worth. What would you mark him out of 10? Still makes good runs, though. Yeah, Kyogo does still make good runs, but he's not getting on the ball. Adam Ida. And I can hear you all thinking now, Adam Ida, Jesus, 7. San Fran Celtic's first time with the 7. Ida 6. Adam Ida 6. He's just arrived. Spacey says 8. And Ida 7. Big Ida gets an extra point just for, big man, 6.5. 7. Oh, I see stats for Kyogo, but not Forest. Let's see the stats for Kyogo, but not Forest. I'll look, right, Michael, see for tomorrow's video, I'll look up the stats for Forest just for you. 7, 7, 6, 6, 8.5. Matt is really a top scorer, as you know. He's got 13. No, I think Kyogo's 1 in front of him. Anyway, I've scored Adam Ida 7.5. 7.5, purely for the fact that he scored a couple of penalties when he first came in. He scored a couple of goals from open play. He scored a cracking header. I think he's still got a lot more to give. But on his efforts this half of the season, I'm going to give him 7.5. He could be doing a lot better. But when you look at his goals to game ratio, for me, he's got 7.5. Right. Another person that was brought in the winter transfer window, another player that was brought in the winter transfer window, is a player that came through the system at Ajax, came through the system in Germany, and ended up in Austria. Yep, Nicholas Kuhn. I've given Nico Kuhn a 7. I've given him a 7. I've given him a 7 out of 10. I think he's a frustrating player, but he seems to be coming on to his own. Michael Ross, don't worry, I will do. I'll never forget this tomorrow morning. He's better than O. Well, yeah, we haven't got to O yet. We're still to get to O, but tell me what you think about Nico Kuhn. I've given him a 7. I think he's a player that could do a lot better. Kuhn 8, says J. Kuhn 7, 6, 6, 6, 7, 7.3, 7, 6.5, 7. Kuhn, as fit as he's been, 8.5. You've got to remember that Kuhn, when he came to Celtic, he had a medical issue that made him lose a stone in weight. For a player that is probably only around about 10 stone, he could do with beefing up a bit. So, Kuhn has a racist name. Oh, no, he's not. How many has Rodgers claimed responsibility for signing? 3, I think, all season. I guess you're ghastly. Couldn't 5. Is there a gas leak in your house, Baz? No, there's not a gas leak in the house. That's terrible. Couldn't get 6. I've given Kuhn a 7. Right, next is another winger. 2, 3. We've got 4 players left. I'll be 5 minutes. Since I can hear you walking about. Yang, I've got 5 minutes to go, so we need to hurry up. I've been going on far too long. Yang for me is getting 7.5. Give me your scores for Yang. What does Yang get? Yang for me gets 7.5. He's a player that frustrates the hell out of me. Is he better than Lewis Palmer? I'm not too sure about it, but I've given him a 7.5 because he's done reasonably well when he's played for Celtic, but he could do better. Maybe I should give him a 7. 7. Can't rate Kun yet. Is that your dinner already, Baz? No, I think we're going out somewhere. She has her shoes on. I can hear the shoes clicking about. Yang 7, 5.9, 5, 7. I've given him a 7.5. I think 7 was probably a fairer score. Look at me jumping the gun. 7, Yang 8, Yang 8, Yang 5, San Francisco Celtic. All steers to their positions. Yeah. I used to call Yang Dung. Well, you could call him Dung. Yang 5, done nothing in Europe. Okay, in the SPL, but yeah, that's why I think a 7's a fair score for him. Right, next up is our last and only striker recognised striker that we have at the club. And it's O. With 3 players to go, we're at O. 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 I'm going to give O a 6. I'm going to give O a 6. I think as a player that had his opportunity when Kyogo was out and had his opportunity at the beginning of the season, he's just not been prolific enough. Yang's been fish. He has that. But let's get on to O. O. Spacey's come in with a 5. O 0-0. Kaiser's 4. I've given him a 6. I've probably been a bit generous with a 6. O1 5.9. 5.9. O8 when he's been played. Oh dear. Oh no. 2. Oh. Uh-oh. I can see all the O jokes coming in now. O5 says Stuart Ramsey. O4. And right, we're going to move on to another Japanese winger. There's 2 players to go. 2 players to go. And the second last player I want to talk about is Daisen Maeda. I've given Daisen 7.75. I've given Daisen 7. He's magic, and he can't score goals. This is sluggish. Dyson, I've given Dyson a 7.5. I think if Dyson, his crossing was a lot better and his shooting ability, if he managed to get as many his shots on target, I think Dyson 10 with hair. No, shave his head again. Yeah, Ian has given us $5. Big up Ian Roy for giving us $5 US. Baz gets 9.9. Dyson a 7. I've given Dyson 7.75. I think he's a player that can do better. I think Dyson, when he's on his game, when he's on his day, can be a 9 player. But I think this season he's just not been as prolific, and his crosses. You've got to think some of his crosses. You're thinking, Jesus, thank God we've got 2 tiers. Thank God we've got 2 tiers. Dyson's getting an 8, a 6, a 7. Dyson going for super 6.5. 8 if he could keep his goal scoring threat. Yeah, I think when he hits for him, he's an 8-9 player. Energy and pace run down every game. Yeah, right. Baz, I'm going to give you a 5 for tonight's show. Great to interact with us. A 5? 5? You're giving me a 5? Fucking leave when he speak to you tomorrow. I'll just talk amongst myself. Anyway, last up is a young player that has come through the ranks at Celtic. He's come through the ranks at Celtic and managed to burst himself into the midfield. And it's a hard position to break into. It's a hard position to break into is the Celtic midfield. But there's a young player that's coming through, a young Daniel Kelly. And what do you rate Daniel Kelly? He's come in, he scored a cracking goal from outside the box with his wrong foot. Daniel Kelly. Kaiser says Baz gets 9 out of 10. Yeah, there you go. But it's 5 out of 5. Well, as long as it's 5 out of 5, Dyson can finish the season on a 7. Baz with hair 10. Not a chance. Baz with hair, single. Kelly gets 6.5. Brendan 10 in a row. Not a chance. Brendan won't be here for 10 in a row. Brendan will be here for maybe 3. He won't be here for 10. Kelly 7. Kelly 8. I've given Kelly an 8.5. Baz, that was $5. Lol. Yep. 6 for Kelly. Kelly's a 9. Kelly too early to mark. I've given him for the effort that he's came in. And when you look at, you have to watch when these young players come in, watch what they do off the ball. Try and stop watching the game for a minute and watch his movement off the ball. And I think Daniel Kelly's movement off the ball has been absolutely fantastic. His positional play, he's a player that is way ahead of his years in tactical awareness. And that's why I've said Daniel Kelly is going to be the future Callum McGregor in years to come. So for me, I'm going to give him a 7.5. Even though he's just came in, I think that he's a player, he's one to watch. He's definitely a one to watch. If Celtic get him tied up on a 4-year deal, and Daniel Kelly, he's going to be the one that's going to be getting handed the armband from Callum McGregor in a few years. In about 5 years, I think he will definitely be the one that will be handed that armband from the current captain, Callum McGregor. And on that note, that brings an end to the team that was the current squad that was on the Celtic website. And I didn't go into the ones that were on loan because, and I didn't go on about the two goalkeepers. I didn't talk about Bain or Siegrist because, let's face it, Bain and Siegrist have been catching flies and just, what is the point? What is even the point? Baz gets a 10 out of 10. Agreed. Looking good. Kelly too soon. Not enough data to rate him. When you look at him as a player, that with the limited games that you've seen him, you can sometimes, when you've been going to Celtic and you've watched a lot of Celtic over the years, you could see something in the player. And I'm telling you now, Daniel Kelly is going to be one to watch. Anyway, enjoy your night, and I'm out. Hail, says Kieran. So you don't see him winning the league on the route to 10. Yes, he will win the league, but he's not going to be here for 10 in a row. He'll be here for 3 maximum. Will the manager, Bain -3. Yep. Hope your dinner is 2 out of 10. My dinner will be 10 out of 10, trust me. Anyway, on that, Bain can go. And on that note, I need to go also. Ian Rice, Ian, big up you for the $5 donation. You should do this kind of thing more often. Yes, I'm going to do. There's going to be more of this interaction type of video, a lot more of that, and especially during the summer. We tend to do a lot more of these type of ones during the summer because you remember, even last summer, we did do Celtic videos every single day. We were doing 3 Celtic videos a day during the summer. Anyway, on that note, have a fantastic evening, Celtic fans all around the world.